Good afternoon, everybody. We're here to do a recap from Monday night's council meeting. Mayor Art Minor, I'm here with our interim city manager, Chief Parker. So welcome. This is your second one, I believe.
Yes, sir.
That you participated in. So we started out Monday evening with a workshop on a couple of items. If you'd like to address those, sir.
Yes, sir. It was a very good, productive workshop. And I'd like to take this time to thank our staff and to the presenters for that workshop. We did two different presentations. We did a presentation on concerns of Starnes and Roof Snow intersection, and that was presented by our Public Works Director, Paul Hackelman, and our Acting Police Chief, Keith Hartman. They did a great job, got a lot of backup from other employees in the city, so staff put in a lot of time and effort and presented a great workshop. I recommend you go back and look at it if you have the time. Then Sergeant Meade, at the request of council, presented some information on parking RVs in the city of Watauga on the streets and how that could be a good thing or a bad thing. So two very good presentations that staff put together for council.
Okay. They were, and as the chief alluded to, please go back if you didn't see them. If you couldn't attend the meeting or watch it live, go back and watch it. There's a lot of good information there. Mr. Kelly White is who has brought this more to light here in the last couple of months than anything. And I did point out at the meeting that we had already started into the safety issues with Starnes actually back in August. So, and the workshop ran extremely long this time,
It did.
which I prefer they don't run that long, but occasionally it happens. And I think with the safety issues of Starnes and roof snow, I think it was a good thing that we did run longer.
Yes,
So with that, we moved into our council meeting. We started the evening out with awards for for employees.
Yes, sir.
If you'd like to hit on those, sir.
That's one of my favorite things to do in the council meeting. We get to recognize employees. We had our City Marshal Ridley Campbell, who celebrated 30 years of service in the city of Watauga. That's a huge accomplishment to be someplace for 30 years. Then our Detective Sergeant, Dwayne Latart, celebrated 20 years of service with the City of Watauga Police Department. And Corporal Danielle Bannock celebrated 10 years with the city.
And I know all those individuals, Watauga's extremely lucky to have them all. And
I agree.
Especially Marshal Ridley for 30 years. That's quite a long time to stay with one organization.
It is.
And then we also had one other person you neglected to mention, and that was yourself with 25 years with the city.
Yes, sir.
I commend you for that. And as I mentioned during the meeting, you're well respected throughout the law enforcement community. I meet weekly with other leaders, council members, mayors, and even police chiefs. And as I said, you're well respected.
Thank you.
We're lucky to have you and look forward to another 25 years possibly.
Doubtful.
All right, after that, we moved into public comment. We had one person, Mr. Kelly White again, spoke at both the workshop and then again at the council meeting about the issues at Starnes and roof snow. And we are looking into it.
We are
doing everything that we can. We had nobody with public testimony. And then the consent agenda,
Yep.
Chief?
We had quite a few items on consent agenda. Most of those items were getting the new fiscal year started. For those of you that don't know, city's fiscal year starts October 1st and runs through September 30th. So every time we start a new fiscal year, we have to re-implement purchasing programs, contracts, and buying regulations. So we had a lot of that on there to clean up and get started for the year.
Okay. And as I've mentioned before, consent agenda is usually mundane, routine, housekeeping procedures. Any council member can have any item on the consent agenda pulled and moved to action items. We get a lot of comments about consent agenda and it just gets pushed through. But there's a lot of research that goes into them. It can be pulled by the request of any council member, and we have had citizens request a council member to pull an item off of consent to have it discussed, which we're happy to do. So.
And Mayor, also, just so everybody knows, just because it's on consent agenda doesn't mean that the same detail of work doesn't go into it, because it does. It's all presented the same way with the same backup and information on consent agenda as it would be the regular agenda.
That's what makes the packets so thick for us to go through each meeting. Let me back up here real quick. I forgot to mention Red Ribbon Campaign on the presentations. I did a proclamation for that. That's alcohol and drug abuse. We're partnering with BISD, and this is a nationwide event, and it runs October 23rd through 29th. And again, it's alcohol and drug abuse issues. Then let's see, we moved into action items. Public hearings. Item number 1 was a holdover from last meeting. We ran into a legal issue. For those that don't know it, we're required to post to newspapers X number of days in advance for different events. And we were actually just a day, almost 2 days behind on that. And so we had to pull it from last meeting agenda and move it to this one. And all that was changing zoning. Nobody spoke for the public hearing. And then it was voted on and passed, 6 in favor, 0 against, and 0 abstained. The next item took a little bit longer. It was a public hearing for the location of packaged liquor stores in the general business and commercial districts and special use permits. Again, there was nobody that spoke at the public hearing. One of the council members made a motion, but then asked that an amendment be added to require a drive-through. We had a little bit of lively debate there amongst council. And that passed 5 in favor, 1 against, and 0 abstained. And I just got to mention that there's a lot of misinformation out there about this. A lot of opinions, everybody has those. I'm okay with the opinions, but there's a lot of misinformation that is just absolutely not true. So it was an amendment that we made to limit where these can go. The biggest concern, I mentioned this during the meeting, one of the biggest problems we've had or comments we've had from people is they don't want a liquor store in every corner. So what we've done, or what council has done with staff is do our best to limit how many there can be. Council's doing their best to limit that, and we're not trying to limit sales or favor one company over the other. So again, misinformation out there, please do your research. And the third item, public hearing for a replat for Bercy Townhomes. Another technicality goes along with all the changes and things they need to move forward. And again, nobody spoke for the public hearing on that. Chief, next.
Yep. Then we went into the action items, and action item number 1 was presentation and action, but we ended up having to pull that off because the representative of Samco had an emergency and couldn't make it. So we pulled that item. Then from there, we went to some cleanup of Chapter 6 and Chapter 20 of the Code of Ordinances. And what we were doing there is basically doing some housekeeping, making sure that we had items in the right chapter where they're supposed to be instead of having duplicates, and just kind of making sure everything flowed the way it's supposed to.
All right. See, item 3 was discuss and consider possible action to rescind the resolution 2021-004, which is where we went to 2 council meetings a month. A lot of lively debate on that.
Yes, sir.
As it turned out, half the council wanted to continue and half the council didn't. So for the second time this year, I got to cast a vote. And I've given this a lot of thought over the past few months. And I thought what would be best for the city of Watauga is to continue the second meeting, at least for a while longer.
Sure.
I don't relish having 2 meetings a month, but as I mentioned during the meeting, it has helped us tremendously in some areas since we adopted it, and so I voted to continue that for a while. We can look at it again here in a few months and see if we want to change it again, but that was my reasoning for it.
But Mayor, also as discussed, that doesn't mean that we have to have them.
That is correct.
It just means that we have that opportunity available to us to take care of business that by law has to be done in a regularly scheduled meeting. And if we don't have items, then we don't post it, we don't have one.
That's correct. And it is a lot of work for the staff to have a second meeting, and we just, like you said, we don't have to have them. And as you mentioned, and I'll say it again, is our charter limits us on a lot of the things that we can or can't do based off of a regular scheduled meeting. So that's the driving factor for it. So. And then the last item was some good news finally, was discuss and consider action to appoint a city secretary. I had a committee where we reviewed, I'm thinking we were in the 40s for resumes and applications for the city secretary. We narrowed it down to 3. The entire council got together and we interviewed those individuals. We ended up interviewing 4 people actually. And Ms. Linda Prosky was the winner. And she'll start on the 1st of November. And I want to say thank you publicly to the subcommittee that had to sit with me and go through all these applications and resumes to narrow it down. It's another one of those things that the council is tasked with doing. That's behind the scenes that not everybody sees. It's a very time-consuming event, but we're hoping this is going to be very fruitful for the city. So again, congratulations to Ms. Prosky, and she'll start the 1st of November. Next, we moved into reports, and again, I've appointed another subcommittee. Will be Councilman Taylor, Mayor Pro Tem Neal, and myself, and it's a search subcommittee for legal counsel. We've gone out with an RFP to see what else is out there. And Councilwoman Hill will be the backup for that.
Mayor, if I could interject a thought here. A lot of people out there may not understand why we have subcommittees. And the reason why we do that is so we can have council input, but not have a full quorum and run into issues for Texas Open Meetings Act. So the mayor, you appoint a subcommittee to do the basic research and get all the facts together. Then they come to the full council and report that so the full council can make a decision based off of the subcommittee. We just simply can't have all the council members on every committee because then we could violate some Open Meetings Act rules.
Correct, and that's why we're limited to 3 people,
right,
to keep us under the quorum. And I'm glad you mentioned that, thank you. And like I said, it is time consuming. 40-some applications for the city secretary alone. And if we had to give that out to everybody in the length of time required of getting everybody together, so the subcommittees are an essential item. And speaking of that, we went into executive session.
Yes,
and I've had some questions about the executive sessions. Executive sessions are where we discuss sensitive items. We may have a business looking to come to Watauga and they don't want their name out there yet. At the beginning stages of a lot of these negotiations, we just get a number. Council may not even know what the name of the business is till we're quite a ways down the road. But we do what they call a 380 agreement, and it's negotiations between a business coming in and the city and what they're asking for, what we can give them, and sometimes the negotiations take quite a while.
Yes.
We may have to meet 4 or 5 times. They'll say they want this, we'll say no, we'll give you this, and you just barter back and forth. But I can tell you one thing, if you're not getting 380 agreements, if you're not meeting to discuss these things in the executive sessions, that is not a good thing for the city. That means you don't have people coming in or wanting to come in. Mm-hmm. So, and we'll have many of them where there's absolutely no action taken. We just had discussion, we haven't decided to do anything, and the back and forth will continue. And that's what happened the other night with Smiley Transportation again. Hopefully it's coming to an end and we'll come to an agreement, but I had one citizen say that they just assume not giving anything to anybody, and that's not a good thing. My goal, both as the mayor and president of the Economic Development Corporation, is to bring as much business into the city as we can, which allows us to maintain and lower our tax rate. Albeit this last tax rate wasn't a huge decrease, but it was a decrease. So with that, we came out of that, went into back into a regular session and then adjourned right after that, whereas we took no action. So that concluded the council meeting. And then, so we don't have to do another video. The next night, we had a special meeting with the Watauga Economic Development Corporation. And it was a short meeting. We've had the opportunity to purchase some land for the EDC. We've had an offer from the individuals or organization that's looking to sell it. But before we move forward, we need to get an appraisal. And that's what the meeting was about. There's only one item on the agenda. Do we want to move forward with the appraisal? The answer was yes. And so that'll be coming back to council, to the corporation, hopefully within the next month. And with that, relatively short week.
Yes, and considering all the items that we had on the agenda and public hearings that usually take a long time, we ended pretty quickly on that meeting.
We did. And we're looking ahead. It's looking like we're going to have a meeting on the 25th.
Yes, sir.
We already have items on that agenda. But we'll see how things go moving into the holidays.
Right.
All right. Anything else, sir?
No, sir. I just hope this has been informative for the citizens and hope that we can bring this to them and they appreciate hearing what we have to say.
Sir. All right. Thank you, everybody, and have a good day.